Leprechaun, the 1993 horror comedy film distributed by Trimark Pictures, is considered to be the first theatrical release of 1993. It does star Warwick Davis and Jennifer Aniston. This is her first film role. She did previously come off of 4 television shows which flopped, including an adaptation of Ferris Bueller. That one definitely sounds like a winner. After doing Leprechaun, she later moved on to Friends, and everyone knows the rest from there. But in order to capitalize on Aniston's celebrity status, 2 other versions of the film cover were released. One features a small clover stating starring Jennifer Aniston. That was not enough exposure for the film, I'm assuming, so a second one was released which featured Aniston's portrait and a minimized version of the original poster in the background. Warwick Davis has played the title roles in Leprechaun and Willow. The part of Willow was written specifically with him in mind. He did begin acting at the age of 11. Davis played Wicket in episode 4, Return of the Jedi. He later reprised his roles in Caravan of Courage, an Ewok adventure, and Ewoks, Battle for Endor. Davis later returned to the franchise for episode 1, The Phantom Menace, in which he plays 3 separate roles. He does appear as Weasel, a gambler at the pod races. He is seated near Watto. He also plays Wald, a Rhodian friend of Anakin, and lastly, he is featured in the walking scenes for Yoda, so he did double for that as well. Prior to the release of Leprechaun, Trimark Pictures released somewhat of a prequel comic book. There are some slight variations from that story and the film. The comic book, Daniel O'Grady is a farmer who lives in Ireland rather than in America, and the way he catches a leprechaun, rather than actually catching the leprechaun, he just happened to cross the gold at the end of a rainbow. Another thing, sad to admit, is I had only seen the movie once as a child. I recently rewatched it for this review, and I've gone the majority of my life just thinking that the leprechaun was a puppet. I didn't know it was actually played by the actor Warwick Davis, so that was a bit disheartening just because it just seemed more, I guess, fantastical or magical that it was played by a puppet. That's what I had assumed. So I was a bit disheartened finding out that it was a person. To me, it's roughly the equivalent of finding out that the Easter Bunny died of rabies, so yeah. The film does open with Daniel O'Grady. He has recently returned home from a trip to Ireland. He's captured a leprechaun, he's brought back its pot of gold, and he thinks his life is about to turn around for the better. Unknowingly, the leprechaun did follow him back home. It wants its gold back, and O'Grady manages to trap the leprechaun inside of a crate with the aid of a 4-leaf clover. Sadly, he suffers a stroke before he's able to set the house afire, and no, not that kind of fire. So we fast forward about 10 years. O'Grady is now settled in a nursing home. The farmhouse is being rented out to a new family. Tori Redding, played by Jennifer Aniston, who is staying with her father for the summer. They're also just sort of remaking or remodeling the house. There's a scene in which they're painting the home this hideous color. It's a combination of scarlet and cornstarch blue. I just wondered to myself, were those colors on sale? What was the reason for choosing that bad combination? Were they just going for the patriotic look? So it's a very odd choice. Obviously there's a group of 3 other people about. There's a handyman, his brother Alex, and their friend Ozzy. Ozzy later runs across a crate in the basement. He hears a faint sound, assumes it's a child that's been trapped, brushes it off, and knocks off the 4-leaf clover. So the leprechaun is now set free. He's picked up where he left off. He's looking for his gold. Eventually, Ozzy and Alex run across this gold, not knowing that there actually is a leprechaun about. They hide it, but Ozzy, having tested the gold for its authenticity, accidentally swallows a coin. So it isn't long before this leprechaun starts terrorizing everyone. Strange assortment of chase scenes, as well as pursuits by tricycle or whatnot skateboard on behalf of the Leprechaun, which does add to the comedic aspect, but we do have some gore factor sort of mixed in as well, including a death by pogo stick. By this point, Tori's father is in the hospital. He's been bitten or attacked by the Leprechaun. Ozzy and Alex have confessed to hiding the gold. Tori does return this, and he goes off on his merry way. Later assumes that he's been tricked because there's a coin missing, so he obviously comes back angrier than he originally appeared. Tori later finds out, by way of Daniel O'Grady, that the four-leaf clover is the Leprechaun's weakness. So, in a gross turn of events, Alex takes this clover, wraps it up in a wad of gum, and uses a slingshot to shoot it into the Leprechaun's mouth. So, apparently they're impartially making out, which, yeah, definitely grossed me out, but apparently it's this kiss of death that signals the end of the film, and the Leprechaun goes away for the time being. Lionsgate with WWE Studios has announced a reboot for the Leprechaun franchise. They're planning a March 2013 release, which has been announced via Dylan Postle's Twitter. Not really too sure what will come to pass. There has been some limited information on that, but we will see when we see, and I will talk to you later.